My experience with the sport is a little bit different to a player's, obviously. I have the control of saying, you know what, my clinic is a safe space. These four walls, whatever's said in the locker room is over there. And in here, no sexist, no homophobic language. Like that is my general rule. I'm 27. I'm a certified athletic therapist. I've worked primarily in universities, but I did just recently do a couple months in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League.
Cool.
I'm openly gay, and yeah, I figured why not talk to Brock?
Well, I love that. That's super cool. And uh, I guess how was it like working with junior players versus in the U sport system? Different?
Different. I I wouldn't say bad.
No.
It's a completely different experience. I mean, as you know, but um, yeah, it's great to be working with that level of hockey because it's a couple steps away from the league. But yeah, it's just a younger group. Overall maturity levels are a little bit less,
Yes.
um, but great group of guys, and yeah, it was okay.
Very cool.
Yeah.
How did you get into hockey?
Um, I come from a pretty hockey-based family. Growing up on the South Shore of Montreal, it's hard not to become a born and bred Habs fan. My family's good at indoctrinating, but yeah, my sort of getting into hockey is kind of the same story as getting into AT. My cousin got hurt playing hockey when he was a teenager. He was hit from behind and broke his neck essentially. Thankfully, doctors and nurses at the Montreal Children's took amazing care of him, and he was able to walk out. And he's now married and has kids. Like, good story.
Yeah.
Um, but that happened when I was very, very little, and ever since then, hockey has just had an influence on my life. Um, and a lot of things that have come as a result have been a direct link to hockey and to that incident in particular. So um, I don't really know how to answer that question. It's just been a part of me and my life.
I
Yeah,
mean, if you grow up in Montreal, you're almost, it might be in the water there. I don't know what
there's
it is,
something,
but yeah,
honestly.
yeah.
Yeah,
So is that how would you say that incident is why you decided to work in the sport?
I think so. Like I said, this all happened when I was very little. So my
Yeah,
whole life, I've sort of grown up with the story and the positive and negative ramifications of the incident.
of course.
And I've always loved sports. I played soccer growing up in high school sports, and I was good at school and I liked sciences, and it just seemed like a natural path to take. And so far, I haven't regretted it. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
What do you love about hockey?
it's hard to put a finger on one thing. I think I just love everything about it.
Yeah.
Um, it's familiar to me. Walking into a rink and feeling that cold, damp air is just brings back memories of going to watch my brother play hockey. And now, as an AT, standing on the bench, I mean, it's the best seat in the house.
Yes.
Um, but it's just something about the sport that is just it's familiar, and I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, and it's also that link to family and community type thing too, right? Um,
Yeah.
how could hockey be better for you as a queer person, as somebody who works in the sport?
I think more open in general.
Hmm.
Um, my experience with the sport is a little bit different to a player's, obviously. I have the control of saying, you know what, my clinic is a safe space. These four walls, whatever's said in the locker room is over there. And in here, no sexist, no homophobic language. Like that is my general rule. But I think if coaching staffs and organizations from the top down adopt what they're preaching in terms of safe spaces right into the locker room, it makes my job a lot easier because it's not, hey, you know what, take off your junior hockey player hat that you wear in the locker room and you come into my space, it's now safe, it would mean that the players would just walk seamlessly through the different environments, and it's the same expectation, the same rules, if you will, of how to act and how to just approach other people. And I think it's, I don't, obviously, rules is one thing, but I think just having an open dialogue from the top down and say, you know what, these things are acceptable, these things are not, and then just stick to your word, really.
I love that. I think it's so important that, the actions aren't performative. The words are met with actual proper action.
Substance.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's some, that it's not just words being said in order to say things.
Yeah.
What keeps you in the game?
The love for it.
Yeah.
The highs and the lows, being on the bench, being able to cheer on the team when they score, they lose, whatever it is, it's what I love to do. And being on the bench is as far as I can get in terms of higher elite sports. So it's just the feeling of it.
And you're helping people.
That too.
And
yeah.
So I think that's pretty incredible. What gives you hope for queer people within the sport?
I think, people like yourself, who are brave enough to stand up and say, hey, you know what, these are my experiences. This is what it's like now. And bringing the people from all the different groups, whether it's the athletes, support staff like myself, coaches, to say, hey, you know what, like, you're doing fine over there, trying your best. ATs over here are trying their best to create safe spaces, but it's bringing everything together. And I think it takes more of us to just step up and be upfront about our expectations for people in the space. I know I'm a pretty introverted person, but I've always been out. If someone asks if I'm in a relationship, I'm open, honest about it. But I am a little bit more reserved. I don't just walk in and be like, hey, I'm in a relationship like that.
Yeah.
I choose to have that personal and professional delineation in my
Of
work.
course.
But at the same time, I think like, oh, you know what, I could just puff up my chest a little bit and stand up for myself and my community. So I think, people like you are really setting that groundwork. But I think for things to truly change, it will take more people on the ground who are in these spaces right now, to affect that change and to change the perceptions. My
I,
experience right now, it's not so much the players, it's more the coaches, the GMs,
yes.
the old boys club side of it, that, to see what a queer person looks like in 2021 is different to what their mind may think based off of their past. So I think it's just that slow process.
And even if the queer people are what their mind may think, so what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like let's take it even further, and let's not even like there should be no space for that for them either. And I think, as a whole, as a community, we got to find better ways to support queer staff within the sport and queer people within the sport, so that they are empowered and they have the ability to use their voice when they want to and not feel alone. So, people like you that are out there, you're changing things just by existing. You're changing things just by being there on a daily basis. But now we have to put you in a position that if you do want to say something, you feel comfortable saying it, that it's not going to jeopardize your career.
Right. Yeah. Having that support system, the step further. Yeah.
Yes, completely. Is there anything you want to add?
I don't think so. I've thought about, I tried to take some notes and be professional and all this stuff, but for a while I've been trying to think of a way that I could, step up and be one of those people to try and, maybe change things a little bit. And one thing as an AT, going through school and everything, it's always been very positive. There's never been any inclination of within the profession that there's any sort of judgment or, you know, preconceived notions. But within the association's bylaws and ethics, it's right there, black and white. Discrimination is not allowed based off of race, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, everything. And I think there's a gap in the relationship of therapists and their teams, whether it's the Q or it's just, community hockey, to say, hey, you know what, these are the values of the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. We do not accept discrimination of any sort. This is a safe space. As ATs, we become the relationship counselor, the
Yeah.
the the shoulder to cry on, the shoulder to cheer with, and athletes will open up. And I think there's a space where we could almost make that message more known and say, hey, you know what? Every AT, whoever's wearing a fanny pack and calls themselves an AT, is a safe space. And I don't think everyone really knows that.
Yeah, I think for the most part, a lot of the teams I've been on, the ATs were a safe space. There's been a few that wanted to conform to the culture and be hockey bros, and then they lose that trust, I guess, from people to be a safe space. But for the most part, everywhere I've gone, it's been one of the safer spaces.
Yeah, and I think I'm happy to be part of that group. But I it's more for the younger athlete, the community based therapist who might be in just minor hockey, where if the team's lucky enough to have a therapist, um, whether it's whatever their parents are thinking, whatever their coach is thinking, it's like, hey, you know what, the AT is a safe space. So if you just want to chat, we're here.
Yeah. And
And
especially at that point, because a lot of them are volunteers and they're still students. So they're going to be, they have no link to the team or to the coaches. So they might be an even safer space.
yeah,
Awesome. Well, Kelsey, thank you so much. And we really appreciate you sharing your story and keeping visible and keeping yourself in that safe space for everyone in the sport.
not a problem. It was great to chat with you.